Hello and welcome to episode 42 of the Dynamo Football Bookclub. This week we are doing The Foot of the Chameleon by Ian Hawkey. It is a book about African football.
Yes, from 2009. And Ian Hawkey, of course we had him before. You hated his guts, Al. He wrote the Di Stefano book. Do you like him anymore now?
Yeah, I do a bit, to be honest. I thought this is pretty solid.
Yeah, he comes across as a nice fella in this book, I think.
With the decisive strike, which gives Serbia's Chipolo their first ever Nations Cup title.
My name's Al Bond and I'm here with my co-host, a man with the sexiest accent in the world, Johnny Coughlin. Hi, Johnny.
Hi, Al, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Johnny. You told me your accent was the sexiest in the world once.
Well, not specifically mine, let me state that one. But the Irish accent was voted by such and such a magazine, like a big magazine, you know, like
a big magazine, a big Irish magazine.
No, Vogue or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but it was something like that. And for the record, I'm not sure. My particular, like to you, all Irish accents are obviously the same. I've heard you doing an Irish accent.
I can do it. What's not sexy about my accent, though, Johnny? Aye, that's pretty hot. Yeah, so this is genuinely an excellent book, isn't it, Johnny? It's broken down into 13 chapters, and each chapter sort of deals with some segment of African football. And I think you really get a decent appreciation. I think it does a great job of tying in the whole continent. Yeah.
It's the first time I thought that maybe doing these books might make me more clever and not more stupid.
Yes. As you say, if you read Peter Crouch's book, you will come out of that a bit dumber than you went into it. But if you read this book, Jenny, you're going to learn a lot.
Yeah, and it took me a while to kind of figure out the kind of way the book was structured. And for whatever reason, I always find that a bit disconcerting. It puts me on edge when I don't know the shape of a book, you know. But what he did is quite clever. What he does is he kind of uses, broadly speaking, a chronological order, but then following World Cups, right? So what he does is he'll say in 1994 he talks about Nigeria because Nigeria were the African team that did best in the World Cup in 1994. But he'll use that chapter to talk about that World Cup, the lead up to it, but also about football in Nigeria more broadly speaking. I thought it was quite clever how he shaped the book when I figured it out.
Well, I figured it was like 13 athletic long reads put together, but coherently in as much it tells a story about African football. And every corner of Africa seemed to get covered in this book. So as I say, it's pretty comprehensive and it's very, very informative. And this is very much a you book, Johnny. It's geopolitics. There is no one fucks a go at any point. But there is a lot of history and politics in here.
Who was it? Fuck the goat. It was Grinch, wasn't it?
It was Grinch. God bless him.
Okay, well let's just dive right into The Feet of the Chameleon by Ian Hawkey. The meaning of the title is not immediately evident what it means, right? But it's to do with how...
It's about touch, isn't it? Like a touch. He says Michael Essien has the foot of a chameleon.
Yeah, but the term was first coined by a football commentator who described a television replay, a slow motion replay, as looking at it through the feet of the chameleon. Because apparently people were confused by slow motion replays when they were a new thing. And how describing it as being seen through the foot of the chameleon made it any less confusing, I have no idea. But the term stuck. And it is a nice turn of phrase, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lovely turn of phrase.
Yeah, and also Michael Essien, as you say. And before we get started, Alan, let me just ask you a question. What was your favourite African footballing nation before this book, and has it changed since?
Oh, what was my favourite? Well, no, there's a degree of bias there, Johnny, because I worked in West Africa for 2 years. So, no, my favourite African nation is Sierra Leone, and it remains Sierra Leone.
But they're not any good, though, so the good ones, from the good ones.
I've always got a soft spot for all of them, though, bruv. I mean, Senegal, I guess it'd be Cameroon. It was always Cameroon. Cameroon were my first. I mean, I remember I watched that Cameroon-Argentina game in 1990 when I was a kid, and that was thrilling, just thrilling to see that. Even as a child, I understood the implications of it. It was such a big step for African football.
I don't remember Cameroon from watching them at the time, and if I do, they're false memories kind of formulated later, but I do remember Nigeria in 1994, but I think it's Ghana for me because of that 2010 whole thing with Suarez and our friend Baby Jet.
Oh yeah, that was 15 years ago last week. Yeah, that was a funny World Cup for me. I didn't watch that game. I knew it was on, but I was doing something else significant on that night. Anyway,
was mysterious. Then do you want to tell me more?
No.
Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, I do. Anyway, so
the other thing I wanted to ask you was, about your time in West Africa. You worked in a school where kids were learning English, but they were in school generally, I guess, but they were trying to be professional footballers, right? Craig Bellamy's Football Foundation.
Yeah, exactly that. So I worked, for 2 years at the Craig Bellamy Foundation in Sierra Leone. I didn't see the best of it, unfortunately. By the time I took over the management there, Ebola was fully set on in the country. So really, I didn't see much of a football. We trained the kids and stuff, but we weren't able to play any other teams until the end of my management there, which was also the end of the Craig Bellamy Foundation. They call me the closer, Johnny. I am John.
Sorry, but crikey, that must have been terrifying.
I was thinking about this earlier because obviously this book brought back a lot of memories, and I think what it is, it's like war, in as much it's just long periods of boredom, i.e., we were locked down, and then moments of pure terror. For example, when my then's girlfriend died of Ebola, and she'd been in the car with him 36 hours earlier, so we were wondering, do we have Ebola? Yeah, so it was.
Sorry, who died?
It was my then girlfriend. My then girlfriend worked for the UN, which is what took me to Sierra Leone, and she had a driver, and he was a great length. They told him, don't attend funerals, don't go there. But he went to the funeral of one of his friends who had Ebola. And one of the tragedies in Sierra Leone is that families prepare the body. It's part of it. So basically, everyone was washing these Ebola-ridden bodies. And basically, if you wash the body, then you would get Ebola 100%. And he got it and he died. And he died on the Monday. And he'd actually driven my then girlfriend on the Friday. So it was terrifying. So, it was mainly quite boring because I was under curfew and there's no real electricity there. So I read a lot of football books, Johnny. But there were moments of extreme excitement and sometimes real terror.
Wow. Well, I guess we're all a little bit more familiar with the concept of a lockdown now, but the terror, maybe not quite so much.
Yeah, COVID isn't as terrifying as Ebola. There's no doubt about that. You're not going to bleed out through your fucking eyes like Ebola. I mean, it's just, not a good way to go. Anyway, I'm going to...
It took a dark turn there. You told us before that your boy Bundu is playing for Plymouth. And did any of the other kids they have been playing internationally within Africa or in Europe?
The last I checked, there was a young lad called Rodney Michael who was pretty decent, and he went to Orlando City, but the last I checked, he was playing in the Bulgarian second division. But again, you're getting paid to play football, right? It's a win. And believe you me, you're getting paid more than anyone in Sierra Leone is getting paid.
Yeah, because Sierra Leone is extremely poor, right?
Yeah, one of the poorest 10 nations on earth, I believe. It's next level poor. Anyway, Johnny, I'll scatter my insights into this. As I say, I have a very, very narrow knowledge of this, but it's quite deep. But I lived in Africa for 2 years, but unfortunately it was only in Sierra Leone, and I've literally never been to any other African country, not even one. Just Sierra Leone.
So it turns out football was invented in Africa.
Oh, I've got some notes on this, Johnny. Yes, yes. I mean, even the author here, God bless him, says, Egypt claims to have invented football, but he says Egypt claims to have invented pretty much everything in the modern world.
Okay.
And their evidence of this is there were balls in tombs. Stone balls. So there you go. You invented a ball, you invented football, didn't you?
There's no hieroglyph of a fella doing an around the world.
No, there's not. And I think someone else tried to fashion the ball out of the fatty tissue from a hippo's neck, I'm told. Yeah. And they also tried to claim football, but I'm not having it, sir. I'm not having it.
No, doesn't pass muster for you, no.
I think it's safe to say it was not invented in Africa. And I'd like to say it's actually not been played in Africa very long.
So yeah, it was brought to Africa by colonialists, right? And it was primarily teams used to get locals, like African people, fit for fighting. And for a long time it was segregated. Right up until the first African Nations League, which was in 50s, I believe, when South Africa were one of the 4 teams that were discussing its creation, and they wanted it to be segregated even then. Now, obviously, South Africa is a bit of a special case on this particular issue, but what I thought was, you said this was a me book, so I did find this whole angle of the kind of role that football played in all of these anti-colonial movements was really interesting, and also how it seems to have been such a kind of a unifying force in so many African countries. And it's by far and away, like, with the exception maybe of South Africa, it's the most popular sport all across Africa, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the only sport, right? I mean, obviously there's other games, but yes, it is really the African sport.
Lovely old football.
So in the start of the book, he talks about the Pan-Africanism. And that is something, again, in my very limited experience, which is absolutely true. All the Sierra Leoneans supported all the African teams unequivocally. There was always, no matter what team it is, they are African, and they supported those guys. And that's a unity we certainly don't get in Europe, right? It's not like England get knocked down by going, go on, Germany, go on, you super lads, that's smashing, go on, France. Not at all.
Before we get into it, did you know that Just Fontaine was Moroccan? That's a fun fact.
No, I didn't, but that was a fun fact.
And who is the first African-born player to win the World Cup? It's in the book, Al. Marcel Desailly, born in Ghana.
Oh, really? That did pass me by.
Adopted by a French father.
So chapter 1 is called Big Game Hunting. And this is generally about European clubs looking for African players. And there's a lot in here about it, and just something I can sprinkle in. Now, one thing that they always struggle with African players is their date of birth. Certainly in Sierra Leone, a birth certificate is not worth the paper it's written on. Do you know how they selected the players for the Craig Bellamy Foundation, sir?
Go on, tell me.
How they selected them, because they couldn't go by birth certificates, so they had to choose a way. They weighed them, Johnny. They weighed them. Anyone over a certain weight was deemed too old. It was enormously flawed.
That does seem flawed.
It was wildly flawed. But that's the best method they thought they could come up with. They weighed them. The problem at Sierra Leone and the Craig Bellamy Foundation was, and here's some geopolitics for you. When I was there, which was, as I say, 2014 to 16, we had kids between about 14 and 18. And so these kids had been born around the turn of the millennium. Now, during about 2000, 2001, there was a terrible, terrible civil war in Sierra Leone, like totally brutal. You can see it in like Blood Diamond and the like. And all of those children had been like denied proteins as they were children because there just simply wasn't enough food. And that had stunted all of their growths. There was one kid, and that was Moose Bundu, who was over 6 foot. And he's playing in Europe now. But the rest of the guys, they were like 5'4", 5'5", and it was basically just flawed right from the get-go because these lads just weren't big enough. It was ever so strange. And I wonder if the way he got them had something to do with it. But it was very peculiar. It was peculiar. They were all tiny, absolutely tiny. I was a giant there. Yeah, and you could see the teachers, the teachers who'd been born before that. They were just regular height, like 5'10", 5'11", and all the kids we had were about 5 foot, between like 5 foot and 5'6". Really tiny because they'd missed out on proteins when they were children.
Just on that Civil War in the context of football, I think I've seen something in the past about their like Paralympic team, because that Civil War was famous for their cutting off people's limbs. I think they were playing, like, introduced football as whatever, some way for people to convalesce or to do things when they were recovering from these awful injuries. Cutting off people's arms, long arms and short arms. This was what they called it in this Civil War.
Johnny, they used to have amputee five-a-side football on the beach, and it would be like guys with one legs, and they'd be having their crutches, and these lads were fucking sick at football. It was so awesome, Johnny. It was so awesome. It's not like, oh, I'm inspired, but it was just fucking brilliant. These lads were so good at football with one leg. It was wonderful to witness. Like, I'm getting quite emotional thinking about it. It's just like, the triumph of the human spirit. It was wonderful to see.
There had been players taken from Africa even before the Second World War. There was a few fellas who played in France, right, in the 30s. Yeah. And there was fun facts in there, like the first president of Algeria, Ahmed Ben Bella, who had been the head of the Front de Libération Nationale, the rebel group that fought for Algerian independence with the French. He'd played for Marseille. That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's wild.
He scored, do you know what his record was, Al? Because I looked it up.
Go ahead.
100% scoring record, 1 goal in 1 game.
Wow.
Yeah. He was offered a contract, all right, but he turned it down. But so we have this kind of beginning of football, and like I say, the introduction of football by colonialists, by English, but of course by French and others, Germans, whoever they were going. But then really the next kind of part of the book is this post-Second World War, the beginning of the independence movements all across Africa. So Ghana was the first country to win independence from Britain. And the president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, he kind of spotted the political value of football, and he used it to promote his political agenda, I guess, but also just to kind of like create some kind of cohesion amongst people. And his team was called Real Republicans, which would be a pretty shocking name for a team now. But he was overthrown in 1966, and his team was closed down. His team was shut down. A lot of the players at the time fled to the US to play in the NASL. But that's amazing, and I found all that stuff really, really interesting. And there's a chapter on the role of football in the Algerian War of Independence, but specifically the Front de Libération Nationale, the FNL, how they established a team for like an independent Algeria before Algeria was independent. But most of these guys were already playing in France, so they had to kind of flee France under the cover of night, more or less. And it's funny now, because I guess back then, back in the 50s and the 60s, you need to coordinate a bunch of fellas leaving France to come to Italy or Switzerland or whatever it was, and then move onwards to Tunisia is where they went. That's a big operation. You can't just set up a WhatsApp group and say, here lads, let's meet tomorrow at 12 o'clock in the train station in Lausanne. It doesn't really work like that. So this was a big, big ordeal getting these boys out of France. They're playing everywhere. They're playing in Saint-Étienne, in Paris, wherever it might be, Marseille. And one of the lads, one of the main organisers of this team, this guy, Mohamed Mouche, he got stopped and he got arrested because the news had broken. The French got wind of the fact that they were doing this. And he spent a year in admittedly quite nice sounding open prison in Switzerland skiing in the Alps. However, he was arrested. And I found that stuff brilliant. I just found that all really, really interesting.
And this chapter read like a Ben McIntyre book. This really was cloak and dagger stuff. I thought this was the best chapter of the book, to be honest. I thought this was so interesting, and it was a story I knew absolutely nothing about. Yeah, this guy, Mohamed Mouche, drove all around France in his MG car. That's a big part of it. Like just persuading these other lads to give up their lives. In some cases, persuading them to give up their wives because they'd married French nationals to go and play for this Algerian team. And he put in all that work. And what nickname did they give the Algerian team, Johnny?
The Desert Foxes?
The Brown Diamonds. Fucking hell.
Who are the Desert Foxes?
Had to be a diamond, then. No, the chapter's called Desert Foxes, but they were known as the Brown Diamonds.
But I think the team is now called the Desert Foxes because, of course, we talked about it when we did the Drogheda book. African football nicknames are the best; they're so brilliant. But Brown Diamonds that's the worst.
Well, that was come up with by white folks. No one's coming up with brown diamonds for yourself, are you? I mean, there's so many black diamonds and black pearls in this book. Basically, if you were a decent player before 1960 and you hailed from Africa, that was your name. You're a black diamond or a black pearl, right? I think almost with no exception.
Yeah. That stuff was really interesting. But I loved all of that stuff. I read a book before about Mobutu, the maniac, dictator in Congo. Zaire, before it was the Democratic Republic of Congo, and he's the kind of archetypal African dictator. If you want to think about a crazy African dictator, he's the flag bearer for that particular kind of awful stereotype. But he was a crazy son of a gun, and that stuff about Zaire going to play in the World Cup in 1974. You've seen that before, the guy kicking the ball in the wall, yeah. Yeah,
well, it's one of the all-time World Cup moments, isn't it? I love my Mount Rushmore, but it's like a Mount Rushmore for World Cup moment, isn't it? Like the lad just booting away the free kick, lovely stuff.
But the book kind of put a few more, I'll
put some more context there, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Because they've been battered by Yugoslavia, and Mobutu had given this massive send-off. They're off the World Cup in 1974. He got this massive send-off, and they're battered by Yugoslavia. Then when they're playing against Brazil, he kind of told them, you need to keep this to 3 goals or there will be trouble. And these guys were all summons to Mobutu's palace when they got back anyway. So when the fella kicked the ball out of he kicked away the free kick, ran out of the wall, kicked away the free kick. Yeah, it's quite sad, isn't it? He
claims it's time wasting, but honestly, Johnny, I call bullshit on that. That's why I did it. I wanted to waste time. No, you're embarrassed and you just want to make an excuse. I had to do it. I would have been tortured by the president. Well, maybe, but I call bullshit on that, Johnny. I think he's just got excited.
He's full of shit. That Zaire shirt is nice, isn't it?
Oh, really? Not well. All those old shirts are nice. All the old shirts are nice, apart from that Cameroon shirt without the sleeves. Not the fat man's friend.
Oh yeah, that was they talked about that in the book.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Can I just want to reference the White Witch Doctor chapter, which is in reference to how so many of the African teams have European managers, and it was absolutely fascinating. I thought to read why this was. And a lot of the players are saying it's because a European manager is not going to pick on tribal loyalty or they won't have biases. Celestine Babayaro says it's important that the boss has a big car. And sometimes, I'm going to refer back to my time in Sierra Leone. When I was in Sierra Leone, the national team manager was fired. And the only person in the country who had the necessary coaching requirements was the coach of the Craig Bellamy Foundation. So he got the national team management gig by default almost. He was the only guy in the country with the qualification. And he was a Northern Irish lad. And my word, was he unprepared. He was just so out of his depth. It was wild. I went to one game and he stood there and was barking away it's just I know you. And I know what you're like. I cannot believe you could get to be a national team manager. But yeah, it's absolutely wild. And there is a whole raft of international managers who just do lots and lots of African teams. Hervé Renard being the one. Can you picture Hervé Renard in his white shirt, handsome long hair? Ooh.
Yes, he was with Ivory Coast when they lost to Zambia, I think.
There's another fun story about an English manager, Jeff Butler, and he managed Al Ahly in Egypt, who are unquestionably the biggest team in Africa, and also the Kaiser Chiefs, who are arguably the second biggest team in Africa. And he claimed to have used to play for Norwich, but no, his name was Jeff Butler, but he was never the guy that played for Norwich. He was a total imposter, and he got the biggest jobs in all of Africa by just claiming to have played for Norwich in the 60s. That's nuts, isn't it?
Just a chancer.
Just a chancer.
But some of these guys, they've managed like 5, 6, 7, 8 national teams. Do you remember when Sven went? Did he get 2 million just to go to the World Cup? Was it with Ivory Coast?
Yeah, he was Ivory Coast, yeah.
When we did the Sven book, he was such a chancer, but I'd say some of these boys, like this John Butler guy or Jeff Butler, some of these guys must be total fucking hucksters, like.
Yeah, but I don't half admire them, Johnny. I don't half admire them.
After they kind of after he deals with the origin story and some of the stuff about the coaches, then he goes kind of country by country, kind of tracking the timeline of the World Cups. Shall we look at a couple of countries and just see what their football history is?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to talk about Cameroon. Did you realise that they were comparatively small population-wise?
I didn't realise what an underdog they are, Cameroon, considering how significant they are. For every Cameroonian, there's 7 Nigerians.
It's poor as well. It's very poor, so it's a bit of a mystery. You know, there are countries that outperform their population size, Uruguay being one, Croatia is another. But Cameroon is dirt poor. Like, it's very, very poor. But anyway, they've done brilliant. They've done brilliantly. As I said, they got to the quarterfinal in 1990. Since, of course, eclipsed by Morocco. He talks about Cameroon in the context of the 1990 World Cup, and it's fun because a lot of focus is on Roger Milla. And, of course, I knew that he was the oldest player to score in the World Cup, but I didn't know that the president of Cameroon signed a decree to bring him out of retirement. He was off playing tennis and football kind of part-time in Réunion Island, which is still a French colony off in the Indian Ocean, east of Africa. So that's what he was doing, and they called him back, and all the players in the team were a bit pissed off that this old fella was coming back, but
Old Gaddafi, as was his nickname. Gaddafi, because he was such a miserable sod.
Yeah, that was funny,
No, I didn't know this either, Johnny. I thought he'd been plucked from sort of nowhere, and it was a wonderful story. But he'd been African Footballer of the Year in the 70s. This was a guy with a really strong track record, and one that I didn't know about. And this is how his little dance of a corner flag was described in a Cameroonian newspaper. It wasn't quite a samba. It was an erotic dance with the corner flag, finishing with the hand down by the groin to show the virile way the defence had been pierced. Yes, please.
Have you ever done that
this
dance?
This is my department. Yes, absolutely. Who hasn't done that little dance by the corner flag upon scoring a goal?
Yeah, it's a nice one, isn't it?
It also gave me the opportunity to go back and watch the tackle on Kanigia by Massing. Did you go back and watch this tackle, Johnny?
No, I did go back and watch some of the goals, but I didn't watch the tackle. Is it terrible?
I fucking audibly whooped in a coffee shop. It is absolutely savage. It's so much fun to watch. I mean, I remember, well, I sort of don't remember at the time, but Kanigia skips past 1. Oh, he's goes past 2. The commentators, he's got away from him, got away from 2. And then this lad Massing comes out and fucking clears him out like you've never seen before.
So they really went quite close to beating England.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, we'd be 2-0 down.
Yeah, that's the story of Cameroon. I thought that was fun. And then there's a lot about all Eto'o.
Yeah, there's quite a lot about South Africa, because obviously this book was written in 2009. So I would imagine he wrote this book because the World Cup was coming up in 2010. But obviously we don't get to hear about any of that. There were some interesting things in South Africa, like obviously
like all this Lucas Radebe and Benny McCarthy stuff.
Yeah, Lucas Radebe was a freedom fighter. Like going off hijacking cars and stuff. He got such a nice face.
But poor Benny McCarthy was just hanging around with his 10-year-old friend, and the kid got shot dead by a stray bullet. Awful.
Yeah, that's absolutely brutal. There was a ref called Screwdriver. Why was he called Screwdriver, Johnny?
Because people stabbed him with a screwdriver.
There it is.
Yeah. So there's a fella called Smiley Musa, Issy Musa, and he was playing all that stuff about segregation, it's so unbelievably daft. So there was the during apartheid, of course, football was segregated about everything else, like everything else. But then eventually it was actually kind of eased before other things in society. And they got to a point where there was competitions. Like there was a white team playing a black team, an Indian team, and a colored team. Like this is all so daft.
Oh, it's wild. But that thing persisted, right? When I worked on cruise ships, I worked with a bunch of South African people. I guess from across the colour spectrum. I don't know if the words I'm saying are right. There was once a huge argument during like a staff meeting, and there was a rugby game on, and like one of the guys asked one of the white South African guys asked the black South African guy if he was going to be watching the rugby, and he goes, "No, I'm not." And he's like, "You cannot be South African if you do not watch the rugby." And he's like, "Fuck you! I'm not watching fucking rugby. I'm not watching." And it caused a massive stir. It was great to see, but yeah, rugby is very much the white man's game, and football is the black man's game.
Well, that was Gary Bailey's experience. Gary Bailey, the former Manchester United goalkeeper, said that he went back to South Africa after playing, I think, and he was, or maybe anyway, people would ask him what he does, and he would say, "Well, I'm a professional footballer," and they would just turn away.
Yeah, but it seemed to me though he went back during the whilst South Africa was still a pariah state, so bad Gary Bailey. So it seemed he went back to Kaiser Chiefs in the 80s and broke the blockade, very much like the cricketing tours and Queen. Queen played in South Africa, didn't they, during the apartheid era? And there was certainly a bunch of rebel cricketers, which gives them more credit than it sounds like, doesn't it? Look at these rebel cricketers going off to line their pockets while supporting an apartheid regime. Those crazy rebels.
Mandela's kind of looming in the background all the time. But Mandela was a football fan, it seems. He says that there was a big presidential event and he cruised off, left the Clintons and everyone else so he could go off and watch a football match. I like that.
Oh, good for him. Oh, there was one nice African phrase as well, harking back to the last episode in footballing terminology, chimbela. Do you remember what a chimbela is, Johnny? And this is something we don't have a word for in English, and it's great. It's when the first time you have a ball, you fucking whack it as hard as you can at the opponent to hurt them. So next time they're going to shy away if you like feint to hit it at them because they'll be scared of it, and that's called a chimbela. And that's a big one in kids football for sure, isn't it? Like you're always doing that, like, "Ooh, I'm going to kick it." No, I'm not. Wee, away I go.
Yeah, okay, chimbela. All right. And what does it? Where did it come from?
I don't know fucking South African language. It's called a chimbela. It didn't say that. Fucking where does it come from? Oh, yeah. Well, I did some research into the etymology of the...
Well, that's what the whole previous book is about. It wasn't just tell us the word. It was also, this is where it came from. This fella invented it, Pascal Chimbela.
Pascal Chimbela. All right, fine. There's a tragic story about the Zambian football team. This was the chapter Buffalo and the Phoenix.
It's an incredible story. We've come across a few plane crashers now that I didn't know about, like that one in Italy in the 30s. And this one, did you know about this? The Zambian football team dying in Lilongwe in Gabon in 1993?
No, I'm afraid I didn't. And a particularly promising Zambian team as well.
Yeah, their golden generation. They're being flown around on these crappy military planes. This is not uncommon, apparently, in Africa for football teams. And yeah, it crashed and 30 people died. And then they were kind of gunning to get into the World Cup at the time because they had this great generation. And then they put together another set of players who were kind of totally unheard of to try and, I guess, honor the memory of these fellas who died, and they outperformed them. Like they outperformed all expectations, and they got within one game of qualifying for the World Cup, and then they also got to the final of the African Nations, and they lost. And at the time this book was written, Zambia had never won the African Nations, but they won it 8-7 on penalties against Ivory Coast in 2012. And Al, do you know where that match took place?
Where was it, Johnny?
It was in Lilongwe in Gabon, where the plane crashed. Amazing,
of
right?
Course. Yeah.
Quite close. The stadium is quite close to where it happened. Incredible stuff. And I watched that penalty shootout. There's a lot of recognisable players from Ivory Coast. Drogba, Gervinho actually missed one of the penalties. Incredible. Both teams score 7 penalties in a row. And then there's, as in 7 each. One of the goalkeeper for Zambia scores the coolest penalty you'll ever see. And there's one penalty that I think it must have been a mishit that went so far into the top corner. I don't think I've ever seen a penalty like it. It looks so unusual. It looks like it's going over. It's funny that penalties so rarely go into the top corner like that. But anyway, then they both score 7 each, and then Ivory Coast miss, and then Zambia miss. It's a young lad and he misses, and then Gervinho misses. So there's 3 missed ones in a row, and then Zambia score it, and it's really nice. In the footage, they're all kind of singing. The players are all kneeling on the halfway line, and they've got their arms around each other, and they're kind of chanting as the fella's going up to take the penalty. It's emotional stuff, as you can imagine. But what an incredible story! Just that. Because that ending wasn't there when we read this book. But I actually, believe it or not, Al, I remember that Zambia had won the African Nations. And I must admit, the African Nations is something that generally passes me by. But I remember that one for some reason. And it's a lovely story. Well, obviously, it's a dreadful story, but the ending is nice.
Well, it was just so fascinating, the logistics. As you were saying, they had to borrow a plane from the military because they normally relied on rich benefactors to pay them to travel to fly to these away games. And when those rich benefactors didn't come forward, they just had to borrow this like wheezing old plane, which they called the Buffalo, which, you could hear the wind rattling in it. Apparently it would fly really slow, really low, just hideously dangerous.
And there was arguments in, I think it was in Malawi, they stopped once and they didn't have the money to pay for petrol. And they're just sitting on the runway. The players weren't allowed to get off the plane to use the toilet or anything until they came up with the money. And oftentimes they would be paying for petrol, like whatever. What do you call the petrol that goes into an airplane?
Air fuel.
Air fuel. Paying for the air fuel with like cash. Here you go, sir. It's whatever, 500 quid.
Yeah, that's what they could. Yeah, because they wouldn't accept the Zambian currency because it was too volatile. I heard these stories of Sierra Leone, though. Like they go to an away game and they would all just bed down in the airport for like 16 hours waiting. There's just no money for it. It's incredible that they play these away games at all with some of these small countries.
Well, there you go. Like in the case of Zambia, a few of the fellas. So when they crashed, the crash was in Gabon, but they were skipping and jumping across Africa to get to Senegal, if I'm not mistaken, to play them in this World Cup qualifier. But a few of the lads playing in Europe were just going to meet them there. So those guys survived. Those fellas playing in the Netherlands and Belgium and stuff like that. And it was the fellas who were, based in Africa mostly, who died in the crash.
And there was obviously some controversy in Zambia about this, and a lot of people blamed the Gabonese. And so now apparently in Zambia, still to this day, a dilapidated vehicle is called a Gabon.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you something interesting, Al. In this book, apparently there was a song about President Bongo from Gabon. And they were saying, is in French, but the song is essentially, Bongo killed the players, watch out, and Bongo will come and kill you. Our mutual friend, Al, went to live in Gabon and taught the children of President Bongo.
No kidding.
And actually, sorry, Al, I've got a question for you. I mentioned him already. Do you know who the oldest world leader is? He's mentioned in this book.
I do not, Johnny.
Okay, I'm going to give you a clue. He signed a decree to bring a player out of retirement who became the oldest player to score in the World Cup.
It's the Cameroon president, Johnny, but I don't know what his name is.
His name is Paul Biya, and he's 92 years old. And that guy, he signed that decree in 1990. He is still in power.
Okay, and so the last 2 chapters deal with the chapter 12, Lion Bites for Cockerel. That's the story of Senegal's victory over France. It's fairly famous, but interestingly, when Senegal played France in the 2002 World Cup, every single Senegal player played in France. and only one of the French players played in France. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, that really stood out, didn't it? All the starting 11, and they were called France's second team. But then, because they did so well, a bunch of them went to England immediately afterwards.
Yes. Most notably El Hadj Diouf. And the last chapter was Sphinxes and Vipers, which is the story of Egyptian football. And it can't be stressed, Egypt are absolutely the top dogs in African football. They are Brazil.
They're the top dogs in terms of the African football, African Nations Cup, right? They've won it 7 times, maybe. But I think they might have one of those kind of Real Madrid situations where they had a lot of wins early on. And what's surprising about the African nations was it's quite varied, right? The teams that get to the final of the African Nations Cup. It's not, like you say, Egypt is dominant. And obviously Egypt and Cameroon, there are teams that have won it more times than others. But, everybody seems to have their day.
One day it'll be Sierra Leone, Johnny. There was an event when I was the manager of the Craig Bellamy Foundation after Ebola had finished. And Andy D'Urso, do you remember the referee Andy D'Urso was sent to Sierra Leone to coach Sierra Leonean referees, and there was a big press conference to welcome Andy D'Urso because it was very exciting. Andy D'Urso was in town. Hey folks, Andy D'Urso's in town. Anyway, we had to do this press conference. I got to talk on Sierra Leonean TV. Now, just to put that into context, there's no electricity, so not many people are watching television at any given time. But I made this promise. I was like, look at the progress of the Sierra Leonean team, and soon they'll be there in the African Cup of Nations, and then on to the World Cup. And I got this rounding cheers and applause. A people pleaser, here we are. But it's not happened yet.
What's the nickname of the Sierra Leonean football team?
Yeah, the Leone Stars. That's it. They've got a lot of cool names. Just on that, what are the Black Stars, which is Ghana team? Their under 21s are called the Black Satellites, and their under 17 team are called the Black Starlets. That's nice. And the Nigerian, the Golden Eagles, who used to be the Green Eagles, their under 17s are called the Golden Eaglets.
The Black Stars are named that because that was the name of the shipping line that was bringing former African slaves back to West Africa. It's cool, isn't it?
Oh yeah, they were going back to Monrovia. That comes up in the George Weah.
Okay, well this is the book. As you said, this kind of, like you said, it was written for the 2010 World Cup, but there is a little epilogue for the 2010 World Cup. Did you see that? Maybe it's not in your version. Maybe I got a better version of it.
No, I saw the epilogue.
So what's your favorite African football name? It's hard to beat the Indomitable Lions, I think.
Oh, I'm going to go for the Satellites. The Ghana Satellites. I think that's lovely. Just a little mini star. It's a satellite.
Okay, so how many satellites do you give? How many black satellites do you give this?
Yeah, well, this is a difficult book to talk about because it jumps around from chapter to chapter. But man, it's informative, and I really feel like I've lost something. I give this 4 lovely starlets, 4 satellites.
Why do I ask you first all the time? Because that's what I was going to give it. It sounds like I'm just copying you. I would say, honestly, most of the books that I've read in this, I wouldn't read were it not for the fact that we do this podcast. But I would read this book in any circumstances because, yeah, like you say, this appeals to me, the content, on so many levels. Yeah, it was great. It was great, and I thought it was really informative without being too dense. It was entertaining in parts. The guy was really into it. He was really, I always find that kind of that infectiousness comes across sometimes if a fella's really into what they're talking about. And I thought he did a good job there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's worked in African football before, and this shines through. This is really well informed, really interesting, and really well written. There's some beautiful writing in here as well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, excellent book. Go read it, folks.
Yeah, 4 satellites. Okay, what's next, Al?
So next is only Ray Parler's autobiography, Johnny, The Romford Pele. This will be a bit more light-hearted, I should think. There'll be no tragic air disasters in this, hopefully.
We're going to have to read about Arsene Wenger getting rid of ketchup for about the 20th time on this podcast, though. Did
he get rid of ketchup?
I might skip the ketchup chapter.
Did Wenger bring about change then, did he? And he was, I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Well, you do say you don't remember anything from these books, so maybe it's a good thing. You've got book amnesia. Yeah, and this one was recommended to us by Chris Etchingham. So thanks, Chris, for recommending the book.
Thanks, Chris. And we will take any recommendations anyone would like to throw at us on our social media channels.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Al. And thanks Ian Hawkey. Now that I've started thanking the authors. Thanks, Ian Hawkey, for that book.
Cheers, Hawks. And we're back next week with an African Premier League football draft, right?
Yeah, so get to thinking of your team name, Al, because that's going to be important.
I am pumped for this, though. I am genuinely pumped for this. Like, I'm really excited to do this African football draft. I think this is what I'm most excited about.
Okay, I really need to win the toss.
Yeah, you've really got to win the toss with this one, haven't you? No, actually, I don't think so, because I think there are some good options.
Well, I just want to poach a particular player.
Oh. Well, folks, already the intrigue begins. Tune in next week. Yeah, exactly, mind games. And I'm weak at mind games. Although, in all fairness, Johnny, you're not that stronger than me either.
Anyway, okay, thanks, Al.
Thank you very much, Johnny, and we'll see you next week, folks. Cheers.
Let your body spin like there is nothing in life but dancing. I can't keep my hands off you, as if this looked like glue.